Libra, great to see you. Welcome to your Libra December 2020 reading. Hi, I'm Nigel Saint James, for those of you who are stopping by for the first time, and for the subscribers, it's always great to see you. Lots of love and energy, positive energy being sent to you always. It's always good to see you. Now, of course, if you'd like to have a personal clairvoyant reading with me, then just check out the information that's in the description box below. But now, I'm going to choose 5 cards for your reading. Well, it's more correct to say that they are going to choose me, I think. So let's see what they happen to be. This one here, the 8 of Discs, the 9, the Crone. That would be Major Arcana. This is an unusual deck, so it will probably take something of an unusual reading, I think. Let's see what is in store for you, shall we? And there is number 5, Spiritual Leaders. I suppose that would often be called the Hierophant. There's the 4 of Cups. That's a good card for you. And finally, here it is. Oh, this is the 10 of Swords. Great. Now, this is here for a reason, and a good reason it seems to be. So why don't you come and have a look at the imagery on these cards together with me while I do the reading for you. Now, next month's reading will be published on the Wednesday, the 9th of December at 2 p.m. US Eastern Time. Now, these cards, I think, are calling for something of a channeled reading rather than a technical reading. So let's see how we go, shall we? I'm going to deal first with this. Well, it was drawn first, the 8 of Discs. Let's have a look at it. Hey, can you see that? There it is, the 8 of Discs. Well, now, what can I say about that? Now, in the picture, a vision of an elk appears to a woman who is walking alone. The woman is tired and discouraged, and the elk brings her a teaching, I think, about skilled perseverance. Since the elk is not a particularly fast animal, it has had to learn how to outdistance predators through pacing and endurance. Now, the woman wears a shawl which I think she has woven herself, and this tells you that she already knows something about perseverance. Weaving, like most crafts, requires both skill and perseverance, doesn't it? What else does this have to say? I think that many people muscle their way through things, ignoring everything but the goal. Although this may work in the short term, the costs are high. When you do this, you can lose touch with your body, your emotional needs, the needs and feelings of other people, your environment, and the very fabric of your being. Even the short-term result can end up skewed, for the action does not grow out of wholeness, but rather out of fragmentation. You must learn how to keep going in a way that is gentle and has more balance. Now, 8, this is the 8 of Discs. 8 is the number of stability, and skilled perseverance is keeping to the course in a balanced and skillful way. This requires pacing and sensitivity so that you can stay aware and take care of yourself while working hard at something. It is important not to override signals of imbalance. This doesn't necessarily mean that you stop every time you get uncomfortable, but rather that you learn to discriminate when you need to make a course correction and when you need to endure a little discomfort. You learn to push forward, and you learn when to back off. Fitness training is a good example. If you push too hard, you get injuries. Yet if you don't push hard enough, you don't build strength. So I get the feeling here of prudence, really, because this is the sun ruling the first decan of Virgo. 23rd of August to the 2nd of September. I also have in this number 8 here, mystically, the planet of Mercury. Now, astrologically for the card, the Sun ruling Virgo. Well, Mercury is ruling the number 8, and in ordinary astrology, Mercury is also the planet of and is exalted in Virgo. So this is very favorable. And here I think the Sun energizes Virgo's hard work and attention to detail. I see the flowering of internal and external richness, the development of wisdom, general development, carefulness, prudence. Probably this is a time for you to be cautious, I think, and take calculated risks. Be careful with money, do some budgeting, and I think you may well have an interest in learning and education, although I see this coming up in other places as well. This card is really about not over or underextending yourself. It is about being in the sweet spot. Do you know, sometimes there is a virtue in doing nothing at all. Be like a farmer who, having ploughed the field and sown the seeds, he sits back and waits for things to develop. And I think that this is what this is calling upon you to do. That you will have success at this task that you have in mind, and it is a success that is coming after a period of time where you exercise patience, where you exercise caution, and where you exercise prudence. Your goal will be achieved, and you might become famous. Now this is, of course, the Four of Cups, and what an interesting thing here, this mask. Well, you know, we all want to have a self we can be proud of or feel good about, don't we? When we get disconnected from our own basic goodness because of negative feedback from our environment, we may try to make up for that by developing an image of who we want to be or who we think we should be. We then try to support and maintain this image by developing certain personas or masks. The more false the persona, the more support it takes to maintain it. And this can require constant attention, even a desire to seek out adoration from others. In a sense, it's a sort of a narcissism, if you were to look at it from a technical perspective, I suppose. But feeling empty underneath and wanting desperately to protect our image, we can react angrily when someone challenges us. When you can accept yourself in your imperfections, realizing that you don't have to be better than others, or better than you indeed are, however that might be defined, then you can certainly be authentic, and that is success. It also helps if you can remember that the negative feelings that are being kept at bay are only just feelings. When you are more objective, I suppose, about yourself, you are less in the throes of these negative self-images. Now, I guess that all of us are most likely to put on a mask when a negative self-concept has been triggered. We believe that this negative image is true, and we don't want others to know this, so we cover it up. We may also grab for our mask in situations where we think we have to fulfill certain expectations. The problem is not so much having this persona available, but getting so lost in it that we lose touch with all the other aspects of ourselves. I think this is an invitation to see what kind of mask you have developed, and you can experiment by taking off your mask and discover that people will like you just the way you are. But the other thing that I see in this here is I see the moon in the third decan of Cancer. Well, in astrology, the moon rules Cancer, and that is a strength. That is a strength of this card. But I'm thinking here of love, tenderness, care, and emotional riches coming for you. The other thing is, although the moon rules Cancer, the underlying message here is that I think that you may want to be emotionally fulfilled in a deep way, but you may be going about it the wrong way. The moon in Cancer here, the moon is associated with the principle of flux and change, and your own emotional states may be shifting, just like the phases of the moon. But nevertheless, you are being given much love and devotion, and enjoy it without becoming dependent on it. Are you in any relationship in which you feel restricted? Are you expressively devoted to someone? And say to yourself, if you are with someone and you are happy being that, say that I enjoy being with that person, full of thankfulness and joy. But don't look to material things at this time for happiness, because I think that the gratification that you get in the short term may be something that is short-lived. You may end up with a boredom or dissatisfaction. Yeah. I think that this here is a reminder for you to realize what you do have and to appreciate it, and to remember always that there are plenty of other people who are worse off than you. Now, I do want to have a look at this card down here. This is here, I think I might have said in the introduction that this is here for a reason. And what is the reason? It's quite an interesting month for you, I think, this one. Now, here, what do we have? This is a picture, a painting, where the layers of the canyon reflect, I would say, the layers of your story and how deep it is. At the bottom is a core pattern that you are organized around. It is illuminated here by the light of awareness coming in. The ascending birds are a symbol of leaving the pattern. The fact that they rise in a spiral reminds you that your work on your patterns is something you do again and again. It is often easy to get discouraged by this and forget that you are indeed moving forward. It helps to remember that this may be a pattern you've been living out for many lives, and that changing the pattern is a major part of your life's work at present. It is as if each time you identify with a story, you get sucked back down into an energy vortex, and each time you disidentify, you rise up to a higher and freer perspective. Freedom is getting out of the canyon, out of the ruts of the mind that have obstructed the openness of your true nature. Now, this number 10, it can be the case sometimes, depending on what's around and the energy around. The number 10 can be the beginning of a new pattern. I'm not so sure that it is in this case. This is an energy that's incidentally coming out. I think this has been put here just for me to channel this information to you and make you aware of it. But this 10 of Swords is about patterns, I think. It's not about beginnings. It is about patterns, though, and it's about mental patterns. Although you must remember that mental patterns also do involve feelings, don't they? Thoughts create feelings in a way, and feelings themselves generally have an interpretive element to them. A feeling comes into focus within a particular setting that gives it meaning. Thoughts, feelings, and self-images are the stuff of mental patterns. And to understand how you free yourself from patterns, you must understand how you get stuck in them. Patterns are like mental grooves. The more often your thoughts and feelings go down certain channels, the deeper those grooves become. You think the same old thoughts and have the same old feelings. The deepest of these complexes is sometimes referred to as your story. because you have run the story again and again. It is not just a groove, it is more like a pit, a giant hole that you can easily fall into. The further you fall into the pit, the harder it is to get out. Well, being aware of when a particular sequence first starts allows you to avoid automatically falling into the pattern and to find other options. The pattern has ended when you no longer fall into the pit, but rather you negotiate your way around it. Now, awareness is therefore crucial. You have to become like something of a detective on a TV detective show, finding the precise connection between your feelings and the situations and thoughts that trigger them. Often, these thoughts happen beneath the surface of consciousness, so you must pay close attention to discover them. But once they become conscious, you can shine the light of objectivity on them. And with compassion and objectivity, you begin to see how many of your self-images and beliefs were drawn from early experiences and are no longer true. If ever they were, they are gone forever. I might have a look at the central card here. What's it called? Taking the Hierophant off the pedestal. Well, it's obvious here that the developer of this deck has changed the name of this card from the Hierophant to Spiritual Leaders. Well, that's interesting, I think, because rather than one male authority figure that is the enforcer of orthodoxy, the title, I guess, and the subject matter of the painting show you that spiritual leaders come in a variety of forms, and you don't need to limit yourself to just one teacher. Although there is a lot of talk these days about choosing your path, I'm pretty sure I read years ago that Native American wisdom says you don't choose your medicine chooses you. Well, this reflects their understanding, which I agree with, that there are actual forces shaping our path. For many of us, it is a path that changes. What is right at one point in time will often give way to something new that better meets your needs the next. And there was an old Islamic mystic, a guy called Rumi, back in the 800s, I think, who said that there are many lamps but one light, many teachings but one truth. And I would certainly agree with this. This card here, and just looking at the image on it, it shows three women of different races. Now this is, of course, I guess only a sampling, but it does reflect the variety that's in our world. Now the fire that's at the bottom here, I think that represents the basic kundalini, or life force within you, which rises up the spine, opening various chakras. Now the woman of color squatting on the ground represents the lower chakras, and the spiritual traditions, such as African shamanism, that teaches how to work with that energy. Her physical position reflects the fact that she is close to the earth. She honors the earth and all its inhabitants as part of the sacred. Teachings concerned with these chakras also include forms of tantra that show us how to work with sexual energy, but I'm not going to go into that now. Now the middle woman is a Native American woman and represents the middle chakras. She is extending a candle to others, which fits with the fact that the middle chakras are more involved with interpersonal relationship and communication. This figure represents the spiritual teachings that relate to right speech, right action, and right relationship. And the third figure, I suppose, can be associated with particular religious figures in the Western traditions, such as Mother Mary, the Virgin Mary, or Mary Magdalene in the Christian tradition, or Kuan Yin in the Buddhist, Parvati, the wife of Lord Shiva in Hinduism, or Khadija, the wife of Muhammad in Islam. Now, they're all associated with the highest forms of love and compassion, and I think she represents the upper chakras and those teachings that tell us about visions, guidance, and dissolving into the light. Now, although I have said lower, higher, middle, these aren't value judgments, obviously, because the message here, I think, is that all are part of the whole, and that cutting off or repressing any part leaves you incomplete. This is not a time for you to be engaging in any revolutions, I don't think. It is a time for you to, in a sense, just go along for the ride with things, go along with the flow, follow the rules, regulations, and in particular the traditions in your life. Now, you may not actually, mentally, intellectually agree with the content underlying the traditions that are in your life, but go along with them at this particular time. This could be a period of intense learning for you. I also have to say, you may well hear of marriage proposals. You could well hear about marriage proposals here. Very good time for people in the workplace as well. I think there's a sense of group identity here as well, and learning and teaching. I think you will be seeking counsel or advice from people, and people will be coming to you seeking your input into how you might be able to shed some light into their personal affairs. And their personal affairs are often more complicated than a 500-page action and mystery novel, aren't they? Anyway, let's have a look at this. You do a good job of that, though, at this time. Very good job. A lot of wisdom around you at this time. What is this? The crone, the light of introspection. Well, hello, crone, and I assume this is the crone here, and the crone looks to be absorbed in an inward state. There is a look of serenity on her face. She doesn't have any need to call attention to herself or to advertise her wisdom. I think she's content with the inner wealth that she has discovered. She's also happy to share it with those who are interested. And the scene is taking place underneath a night sky. When ordinary consciousness is dimmed, you see more easily, and you are more open to other ways of knowing. The moon, and you can see the moon in different phases here, running up the middle. Let me get my finger out of the way there so you can see it. Well, the moon is a symbol of feminine consciousness and intuition, and it's present there in its various cycles. Now, I think what this is saying is that, look, the card has traditionally been called the Hermit, and you'll probably be familiar with an old guy carrying a lantern. Well, it represents one who has gone their own way and discovered spiritual wisdom, and the solitary male figure that goes along with the Hermit has been replaced here with this old crone. Now, two young women in the foreground are doing a ritual honor to her. This is a reminder that others can participate with you in your journey. Certainly a large part of the crone's wisdom, I think, comes from introspection and solitude, yet these can take place within the context of community. And you need to remember this as well. The crone doesn't need to be alone, and she doesn't need to be with others constantly. She moves backwards and forwards in a natural rhythm between solitude and community, bringing the wisdom from her inner search to enrich her relationships with others. And she becomes of service to others, not by leaving herself behind, but by being herself fully. Yeah, there's a good astrology associated with this card for you as well, because it is Mercury ruling Virgo with Mercury exalted. In other respects, I'd call her the prophetess of the eternal, the mistress of the voice of power. This is a time for you to be finding your own light, going inward, almost like completing the harvest. You know how we were talking earlier of this harvest being planted? Well, there may be some aspects of it being cropped early. And again, also, the idea of patience is coming through here, just as that Eight of Discs had spoken of. I think it's also about you getting away from something in order to get a better insight into it, and probably also becoming aware of something which you were previously unaware of, and you've shone the light on it. And maybe some alone time for soul searching and recalibrating yourself, rebalancing yourself, and getting in touch with your untapped wisdom, really. Now, I think that when you are alone, accept your aloneness and don't concern yourself with people who don't understand you, who would rather see you be part of the herd. If you should meet a wise leader or teacher, then join him or join her. I suppose you want to ask yourself whether you have any unresolved situations or relationships in your life at present. Make a list of all the situations which you now wish to resolve or in some way bring to completion. Because whoever embarks on the search for internal light must not be encumbered by unresolved conflicts. Accounts must be settled. But say this to yourself: I enjoy the feeling of completion and resolution. I will not compromise that which is important to me. I enjoy my aloneness because I can stop being alone whenever I want. What a particularly fascinating spread of cards for you. Good job, Libra. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, I thought that was going to be good, and it was. I hope you enjoyed that reading as much as I did providing it to you. Now, don't forget, make sure you check out your 2021 annual reading. If you're a subscriber, of course, it's delivered into your subscription box, or just have a look at the playlist that's on the channel. It's being published the day before Thanksgiving in the afternoon, US Eastern Time. But look, remember one thing always, and it is this, that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, it's bye for now.